All right, Aaron. Well, thank you for joining me today. Would love if you kind of just walk me through how the start of your off season's been going and where you're at right now.
Yeah. So at the start of my off season, I was playing baseball in Venezuela, dealing with some like lower back and like right QL pain and discomfort. Velocity was right where I was at during the season, sitting around 89 to 91. Um, and then where I've kind of developed to and gotten to, I did some posture therapy with Connor starting in what was that? November 15th was day one, so I'm right at around 3 or 4 months here, and velocity in my last two bullpens I averaged 92.1 and 92.9. So 92.9 is probably the highest velocity fastball wise that I've had in my entire career. Body's feeling better, and we're on the verge of either going to play in Mexico or going to play here in stateside with an affiliated club.
So when we first started working together, just walk me through like what your initial injury history kind of looked like, even going back to high school with just the surgeries that you had experienced and where you were at when we first started in November.
Sure. Yeah. So complete injury history. I had a olecranon, which is the bone right here. It connects down to your elbow on the backside. I had a stress fracture in the spring of 2012. That was my first ever arm injury. Um, and then that turned into a loose body into 2017. I had to get an arthroscopy done in 2017, my first year in pro ball. But the year before that, I tore my right ACL and my right knee in college playing pickup basketball. My coaches and my parents were pissed. But it was so much fun. But anywho, and then after the ACL reconstruction, after the arthroscopy in 2017, I didn't have another injury. I was injury free until I had a PRP injection in the winter of 2020, January of 2020. And then 2020, we canceled the season. And then I ended up having TJ in the spring of 2021. And then ever since I made my return to Double A in 2022 with the Yankees, I've been injury free since then. I haven't missed a game. Um, but I've been dealing with, on and off, like I said before, lower back pain, right QL, sometimes left oblique, just all the areas below my rib cage on my backside, between glutes and rib cage has always been my area of, that gets compromised during the season and throughout my, athletic career.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of that battle of am I playing injured or am I playing hurt? And you were kind of like able to play through these different things, but they were impacting your performance that you were able to actually get out on the field.
hmm Exactly.
So when we first started, what did that initial process look like from when we like created the first video and you got rolling on your exercises? What did that look like from your end?
So from my end, I really appreciated the analysis, right out of the gate. You take photos and you be as relaxed as you can, and you get to analyze your posture, and then you go to town and you start ripping me apart, and it explained to me how crappy my posture is. At least where we want it to be, it's crappy when you
In
when
a
you first
polite
get
sense.
started. Yeah, exactly. But it's all comparative. And we attacked the low hanging fruit in those first couple months, and now we've moved on to really, continuing to attack those, that area that I was describing before between my ribs and my glutes, um, and putting my spine and my whole body in the proper alignment in order to alleviate some of the stress that my body puts on that area.
Mhm.
Um, so what it looked like at the start and what it looks like now is still 20 to 30 minutes of daily discipline where you get in the right mindset and, you execute this program and, you're just, as I've been doing it for the last couple months, it's just been, it's such a good way to get myself to a baseline of ready to perform, whether it's a workout, whether it's a throwing program, and I can trust that my body is going to be able to handle the load that I'm about to put on it. I still get sore. Those areas are, still the places that I get soreness, but I'm able to put my body in a place to be able to be ready to perform on any given day. And, the biggest thing is that these exercises and this, daily discipline is a tool in my tool belt in order to keep my body as healthy as I can for as long as I can.
Absolutely. So I know one thing that I always tell people when I first start with them is that while I give youth kids pitching lessons, I am not a pitching coach. And I'm not going to tell you to throw the baseball differently than what you and your body and your pitching coach want you to do. But as far as you feel like how posture has impacted your mechanics and the rotational capabilities that you have, what do you feel like
Mhm.
posture has done for you mechanically?
Um, yeah, so mechanically, I mean, even so from a results perspective, I've touched on it already. My, last two bullpens have been the highest fastball, velo really of my career in the 92s is basically as hard as I've ever thrown. So results wise, it's definitely there. And it's not like I put on a lot of extra strength or weight. I'm lighter than I was in last season, and I'm definitely not, any stronger than I was last year. Um, but as far as the rotational capabilities and how my mechanics have changed, I've I've realized that being able to be loose and letting your body flow through positions is better than trying to like get to positions and to force things. And what I mean by that is you see freeze frames of elite pitchers all the time. And you're like, oh, like that's the position I need to get to. But it's not the position that you need to get to. It's the flow and the transfer of energy to get into and out of that position, which is so important. And I've really just embraced the sort of the flow of the energy through my body, and now that my lower back is starting to be a little bit more cooperative, I'm able to just get in and out of those positions a lot quicker, a lot smoother, a lot faster, and I think that's leading to the higher velocity numbers that I'm seeing.
I love what you just said there in terms of the flow of energy because a lot of people like when they think about throwing hard, they think, "Oh, I just got to muscle it." And that's like absolutely the worst thing that you could do. You're tensing everything and that's going to make you move slower. So like I know the first kind of things that we were talking about as far as like I'm actually going to pull your pictures up here.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we were talking about like how this energy moves throughout your body, right? Like from the ground up. And when we look at your side pictures, like particularly on your left side, you can see how far forward your hip is of that white line that we wanted to touch, which is then just not going to allow us to load into the ankle to the full capability that we should be able to. So from our first movement, we're already leaking force. And then as we send that up the chain, more force starts to leak from the compensations that you're talking about by trying to force positions. But as we got your body into that better alignment, the flow of those positions happened much better for you. So, like a lot of times, guys would be like, well, how is posture going to help me gain velo? Well, posture itself isn't going to get you velo, but you moving faster and flowing through these positions is what gets you there. So, I'm glad that that's kind of what you were able to feel and take away from that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's the confidence of the what the routine does for your body, and once your body feels better, and once your body's able to receive that flow of energy that we're talking about, then that's where the velo comes. Things, athletes, you get to a certain point where whether you're 18, 20, 22, wherever you're at in your career, things start to click. Like you're never in a steady state in your career. You're always learning something, and when your body's healthy after being hurt for such a long time, things start to click really fast. From outing to outing, bullpen to bullpen. So your health is, it's cliche, health is wealth, but I mean, it's even more so true in an athletic endeavor because you cannot play when you're injured. It's
No.
just not possible.
And if you are trying to play through it, you're not playing to the full standard that you know that you are capable of producing.
Exactly. Exactly right.
So, as far as kind of like the level of support that you have felt throughout this program, because sometimes like remote programs aren't always the best in terms of the level of support, at least from what guys
hmm
have kind of told me. So, how do you feel like you were or weren't supported to the level that you needed throughout this program?
Yeah, no, the support was great. I really had no issues with the level of communication, with the frequency of communication. Um, you get a new program every couple of weeks, or every month, depending on the time of year where you're, getting programmed in. And if you have a question, I mean, you're always back to me within 24 hours, and sometimes a lot sooner than that. But um, and whether it's about a position that I'm in for an exercise, whether it's about a feel of an exercise, you know, what we're trying to achieve as far as getting our bodies back to those, get as close to those lines as we can. And having you available to us at every single day of the week, 7 days a week, and you're responding in a timely manner. I mean, as far as remote programs go, I mean, the communication and the support has been pretty seamless. Like it's been very comfortable. It's been easy to execute.
How do you feel like the addition of Sarah has added to or taken away from your understanding and like desire to learn more about what this is doing for you and also just like in that communication sense?
Yeah, I mean, more hands on deck is always better. You're able to divvy up the load of communicating with an ever growing number of clients and people that you're working with, and then different perspectives. You don't come from the same background as Sarge does, and vice versa. And she comes at it with, not saying you're not passionate by any means, but she brings a little bit different level of fire, you could say, and a little bit
Absolutely.
different level of personality to the equation. And sometimes the way you explain something might not be the way she explains something. So it's like you could ask both of you the same question, and you might get a same, versions of the same answer, but one version might not click with X athlete or Y athlete. So I think it can only be more valuable to have the excellence that you both bring, but also the difference in personality and culture around where your excellence has come from.
Yeah, I think I tend to, and Sarah will agree with this, but like I tend to come at things from more of like an anatomical sense and explaining the moving parts of what we're doing and why we're doing it in a more detailed sense. And Sarah doesn't have as in-depth anatomy knowledge as me. She likes the visuals explaining. But she's able to explain things in a very in-depth but much easier to understand way than I do. I like the nitty-gritty, so I can dumb it down from there, but Sarah is really good at giving highly complex answers in a very easy to understand format.
Exactly, which is crucial for, some people think in, words, some people think in pictures. Most athletes I found really think in like, think in pictures because they're very spatially aware and how their body's moving through space. So, sometimes, you're saying words about the body parts and it's like that's not clicking for athletes, but it's like, sometimes it might silly and we can joke about it, but it's like when you see this picture, it's like, okay, like it's not supposed to be like this or like internally rotated or twisted around. And it's like if you're able to bring a picture to the table, it can only provide a different perspective, and that's going to aid in helping kids who think in that way.
No, absolutely. I think there's a really like you were saying, like athletes are very visual in the way that they learn. And a lot of them, especially the elite athletes, like you show them one movement or thing one time and they can reproduce it very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what would you kind of say to somebody who's on the fence about either incorporating posture into their routine or just saying, like now's the right time for me to invest in my career and get this in track?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I'd say the people who need it the most are the guys who have reached a level of talent where they know they're talented. The people around them know that they're talented, but they're held back by their body's own limitations. They're able to produce force, whether they're freak athletes, whether they're just really strong, and if you're injured all the time, if you're not up to your potential, if you think like, oh, I peaked in high school or I peaked as a freshman in college and it's like I don't think I'll ever get back there, it's like give posture therapy a try for this whole reason that it got me to a place where I feel more confident about my health and my preparation, and a number of other guys that that you've built a community of. And you know if you can get back to that level of just pain-free working, it gives you another level of confidence and it can kick your career into another gear.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I guess is there anything else that you want to touch on or anything else that you want to say to somebody else who's potentially watching this?
Yeah, Connor Bedell is definitely the better Bedell. Ian is washed up and he's totally not crushing it in big league spring training right now. No, Ian's awesome. Ian's awesome for those who know him and those who don't. But no, Ian's great. But no, in all seriousness, I think this program has really helped me and gotten me to a point, like I've said, a time already, a place where I can be confident in my pre-routine before I start throwing, and I know that the way we go about executing this program and with the daily discipline, I'm going to be, I'm gonna be as good as I can be for as long as I can. So, thanks, Connor. I appreciate it, man. Dude, this has been a wild ride for the last 3 or 4 months, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I have been more than impressed by the work ethic and the things that you have done to get success out of this program because we get like a wide variety of people and personalities that walk through here, right? And you were very much on the end of the spectrum of I'm going to take responsibility for my career and I'm going to ask the questions that I need answered to know the why and the how of what I'm doing. And those
Mhm.
are the guys that get the best results. The guys that come in and say, hey, here's my photos, give me exercises. You're still going to get results if you do your exercises, but if you buy into the process of what we're trying to do and understand it, I think you're only going to be that much further ahead.
Yeah, be curious, man. It's a rule in life. Be curious, not judgmental. To quote Ted Lasso's dad, it's a great quote for a reason.
There's a lot of really good quotes out of Ted Lasso. We could go on a
Yeah,
whole tangent with that.
yeah,
All right.
no
Well,
doubt.
I appreciate you, Aaron. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you ball out this year, whether it's Mexico or not. If it is Mexico, I'm gonna have to take a trip. Haven't been there.
Come to Guadalajara, bro. Hopefully, I don't see you there, but hopefully, I see you.
Hopefully, I see you in a big league stadium. That sounds far more fun for both of us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
All right. Well, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, happy to, man.